Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a quiet sexual revolution, one that's happening in bedrooms you'd probably never expect. And no, this isn't about scandal or betrayal. It's about a really profound journey of self-discovery that a lot of women are on in their 40s. We're going to explore why this very specific dynamic is becoming, for some, a powerful tool to reclaim their own sexuality at this unique stage of life. So, let's just start with a number that completely shatters the myth of female sexual decline. A massive study, and I mean massive, it followed over 3,000 women for 15 years, found that this number, 27%, represents the women who said sex was highly important to them all the way through their 40s, 50s, and 60s. So, not declining, consistently high. That whole narrative that women just lose interest as they get older? Well, the data shows that for a huge portion of them, that's just not true. And this question right here is the key. Because what's happening in a woman's 40s often isn't a crisis, it's a clarification. It's this powerful convergence of biological change, a new kind of psychological freedom, and yeah, for some, a really conscious choice to redesign their relationships from the ground up. So let's unpack it. All right, first up, let's look at what's actually happening inside a woman's mind and body during this time. You know, her fourth decade isn't just another chapter. It's a period of really intense change. It's like a perfect storm of forces coming together, creating the ideal conditions to reevaluate, well, everything, but especially sexuality and relationships. Okay, the contrast on this slide is so important. The story we're always told is all about loss, right? Hormones fading, desire disappearing, but the clinical reality, it's way more nuanced. For a lot of women, this period is, weirdly enough, liberating. Turns out that psychosocial factors, things like confidence, self-esteem, they become the main drivers of a healthy sex life, and they often matter way more than just hormone levels alone. And here's the crucial point. Those hormonal shifts in midlife, they can dampen what's called spontaneous desire, that out-of-the-blue urge. So when that happens, a woman's mind becomes the primary engine for arousal. Her desire becomes more responsive, just like you see here. It needs a trigger, a psychologically rich idea. And this is exactly why a complex dynamic like cuckolding, with all its themes of power and taboo, can become such a potent mental stimulus. It's like it's perfectly engineered to ignite that responsive desire. And this quote, wow, it just powerfully illustrates the psychological side of this whole thing. This stage of life isn't a crisis. For so many, it's a peak. Women in their 40s report a huge increase in confidence and a lot less self-criticism. They know what they want, and they're way less willing to settle. This quote just perfectly captures that shift, from seeking approval from others to owning this powerful internal sense of sexual agency. Okay, so now let's zoom in on the relationship itself, because even the happiest, most stable, long-term partnership can fall into a routine. The very comfort and security that builds all that intimacy can paradoxically be the biggest enemy of erotic excitement. There's this really powerful idea that helps explain this. It's called the Westermarck effect. Basically, deep familiarity can unintentionally desexualize a relationship. Your partner becomes so comfortable they can almost start to feel like family or kin. And while that is absolutely wonderful for security and partnership, it can be terrible for eroticism. That need for novelty and mystery, it isn't just a whim. It can feel absolutely essential to reigniting that spark. So if novelty is the goal, what about jealousy? I mean, that's the big question, right? Well, the key is this concept, compersion. This is the emotional linchpin that allows consensual non-monogamy to work. It's not about the absence of jealousy, but an active, empathetic state of joy. When a partner feels genuine pleasure from seeing his wife's pleasure, it completely transforms a potentially threatening act into a shared and often a deeply intimate experience. And this brings us to a huge paradox. For some couples, exploring this isn't just about fantasy. It's a really pragmatic tool to solve real-world problems. It can address mismatched libidos, which is a massive source of conflict, and it forces a level of radical, vulnerable communication that, let's be honest, most conventional relationships never even get close to. That process alone can forge a bond of trust that's way deeper than one built on unspoken rules. Okay, now we get to the absolute core of this shift. We're looking at how this dynamic is being completely reframed from what was seen as a male-centric kink to a powerful vehicle for female agency. A space where the woman moves from being just an actress in a sexual script to being the writer, the director, and the star of the show. This table is so crucial for understanding the nuance here. In the more well-known hot wife model, the focus is on her desirability. But in the cuckoldress dynamic, as you can see, the power center shifts entirely to her. Her authority is the main event. For a woman in her 40s who is seeking true autonomy, the appeal of this model is crystal clear. It represents a complete and total reclaiming of her erotic power. This quote just gets right to the heart of it. In a culture where female sexuality is so often framed by the male gaze, this dynamic just flips the script entirely. Her pleasure becomes the primary objective. It allows her to separate the physical from the emotional, to choose partners on purely sexual grounds while knowing her primary relationship is rock solid. It's a powerful act of reclaiming autonomy on her own terms. So, what happens when all this curiosity moves from being a fantasy to becoming a reality? Well, it's absolutely essential to ground this in a practical, ethical framework. The fantasy provides the charge, for sure, but the reality requires communication, consent, and a whole lot of care. Just look at the data on this slide. Research shows this huge gap between wanting to act on a fantasy and actually doing it. And you know what? That's completely normal. What this tells us is that the fantasy itself is incredibly common and really healthy. It can provide all the excitement you need without any of the complex logistics and emotions of trying to make it happen in reality. Now, for those who do decide to explore further, clinical best practice strongly advises a gradual approach, just like the one you see here. The foundation of any ethical exploration is radical honesty. You start small, you test the emotional waters, you build a clear agreement together, covering everything from boundaries to aftercare. And honestly, the process itself, that deep communication, is often what strengthens the bond the most.
Ultimately, the takeaway here is bigger than any one dynamic. What we're really seeing is a signpost for broader cultural shifts. The women in their 40s who are courageously redesigning their relationships are showing us all that the second half of life can be a time of profound sexual discovery. And it leaves us with this question. Is the goal of intimacy to follow a pre-written cultural script, or to find the courage and trust to write your own?